imbecile! What kind of crap lousy game are you playing?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to the blockbuster new release wall of our memory, grab a copy off the shelf, pop it in the old VCR, and see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Mike.
Hi, Danny Smith.
And together we're here to help you navigate all the landmines littered down memory lane. So Mike, I think this might be our Sgt. Pepper episode, but before we get into that, you were mentioning you had something you want to some remarks you want to make?
Yeah, well, by the time this podcast was released, it may be a little old news, but I think it still deals with what we've been seeing out of the cinemas lately, the last few months. In particular, movies that just came out called Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. That was released recently, let's say. At its pace right now, it's probably going to bomb, somewhat similar to the Flash movie. But I went in deep. I went down deep into the YouTube video vault, and I looked at, I'm going to conservatively say, probably 40 or 50 different reviews of this movie in the last day or two. And what struck me was the range of reviews. How a lot of them were angry, but the most angriest of the reviews came from people who had just finished watching the original trilogy of Indiana Jones. You know, Indiana Jones, and you had the Temple of Doom, and then the Last Crusade, and the people who rewatched those three movies before they came in the theater to watch the Dial of Destiny had so much more vitriol and anger and rage at the fifth movie. And I just thought that was interesting because and there were a few reviews of people like, yeah, I think I saw Raiders a long time ago, and this movie was kind of an interesting take on it. You know, it was a totally different review, and it made me think of how we look at movies now or in our podcast. And we're looking at these movies from 30, 40, 20 years ago, and I guess we're not thinking. I guess what I'm saying is it's interesting to revisit these movies and see them the way we're seeing them now. And I guess it does give it, subconsciously maybe, and sometimes overtly gives us more of a idea of how much better some of these movies are than what comes out today. And even movies that you could say, hey, they didn't like that movie. Well, they're all good movies in a certain way or another until you get to the movie we have today. And let's not bury the lead.
That's a great segue, Mike. I think you're spot on. I think that was kind of what we were trying to capture with this thing when we started. Is that's context always gets brought up. It's these movies. Time doesn't change them. We're the ones that change, and that's the kind of thing we wanted to kind of capture with this. That was the spirit of this thing when we started. But so what better experiment? So we're gonna test the limits of the system this week.
All right.
Before we do, I just want to say that the following episode of Grumpy Nostalgia contains themes and depictions that some of our more sensitive viewers may find disturbing.
It's funny, after my little editorial, I realized the fruitlessness of it all coming before a Battlefield Earth podcast, and somehow that doesn't seem to be a good juxtaposition. I apologize for that.
Oh, well, there you go. So the cat's out of the bag. We're going to talk about the much maligned Battlefield Earth from 2000. I think we've kind of set the table, and I think it's just time to jump in and take a big bite out of this cinematic fromage.
Which some people consider the worst movie ever made. Do you see it on the list for? At least in the top 5, it's kind of a perspective thing, because it's one of those movies that's bad because of how much went into it. Kind of like a John Carter on Mars movie. It's that kind of bomb that you really didn't expect a movie with this much put into it, supposedly, but that's another story.
I think a lot of that's got to do with attention span too, because over the past, I don't know, we're a little grumpy here, guys. Buckle in. I think over the last 20 years, with the attention span and the availability of information at one click away, the worst movie of all time is the movie we just saw, and the best movie of all time is the movie we just saw. If you look at people's top 10 lists, it's usually it's very situational. It's very, but so we're going to go back in the way back at 22 years. I'm going to talk about this doozy. So this was directed by a guy named Roger Christian, who was a set decorator for the original Star Wars, and he's actually the second unit director on Phantom Menace. And he really got this job after George Lucas recommended him to the producers. So I don't know if he's happy about that or not. It was written by several people. The first guy was a guy named J.D. Shapiro, who was probably most famous for the time writing Robin Hood Men in Tights. And he wrote one episode of Charles in Charge. just the one.
Wow, that's a thick resume right there.
Yeah. Corey Mandel came in to do a rewrite. This was his only screenplay he had ever written. He had never written one since. And he wrote, he had like one TV movie to his name, but after that, really nothing more from Corey. The legend here is probably more accurate. It was a secret cabal of Scientologists kind of took over the story after these guys kind of handed it off. Of course, the original source material is from L. Ron Hubbard. But you ask anybody who wrote this movie, these are the two guys that get credit, but more likely it was kind of a behind the scenes type thing, collaboration between that ministry. The budget, again, even the budget's kind of unclear about this thing. So it was reported at $100 million budget, and there's actually some nefarious stuff behind this. The studio at the time kind of exaggerated its budget for financing
Right. And I remember this when it came out, and I'd never heard of this before. I'm sure it's a Hollywood thing, but for a production company to know that they have two movies on their schedule, they say, okay, we're going to do this one, part one and part two.
Yeah.
But they exaggerate how much they spent on it. So they could say, hey, we can't do another one because we spent so much on this movie.
Yeah.
But they cooked the books because I guess they knew they had a stinker on their hands they were working on.
Dirty pool, mister. Like our friend Hank Hill would say.
This is not something we need to talk about.
Well, I think the rub is that, the problem was it wasn't an actual production studio. It was an investment firm. And we'll get to that in a little bit here with our movie notes. So the number of 44 million has come up. But again, that was not dictated by the courts. The real number here is about $21 million after Travolta got his share. He took a serious pay cut to make this, but most of the money that went into the budget was still for his salary. There was a whole lot left to make a decent movie here. But that's kind of the nefarious story of how it began. And this was released in the early summer, May 12th of 2000.
Yikes.
So, yikes.
That's a summer stinker.
Yeah, we've had 20 years to decompress from this, but we'll kind of get into the details and see what time has done to it, as I like to say. So let's talk about the cast, Mike. It's hard to even say without laughing, but let's kind of go through the principal players, shall we?
Principal players. I'm just going to go through, like you say. There's John Travolta, who previously in one of our podcasts, he was in Face Off, and after watching this and Face Off, some of his other body of work, I realized, and you don't have to laugh at me, but he's not a very good actor. And I know that sounds silly to say, I guess, and I'm finally realizing it, but he has one of those kind of I don't know, it's hard to describe it. It's like every time he's angry, he grits his teeth, and then he always when he emotes, it's almost like hammy.
He's kind of like a guy that's in movies.
Pretty much.
The parallel is like Nick Cage, but Nick Cage had that leaving Las Vegas moment where, he at least has some chops, but now you say it in hindsight, I think you're right. There's not a lot there.
It's funny because when I thought about it, that's the first thing I think of was like, okay, let's take all those other movies aside. Let's take some of the serious movies like, I don't know, General's Daughter or Phenomenon or I guess Michael is more of a comedy, but in Phenomenon, it's like more of a dramatic movie where he has these powers and he has, spoilers, he has a brain tumor or something that gives him these mystical powers. But even in a serious movie, it's hard to take him serious. You think him as the boy in the bubble, or
Vinnie Barbarino syndrome.
Yeah, or being in Greece. It's hard to get past that. I mentioned this on another podcast, but I did like the movie Blowout, and he was really good in that. But he hit that spell in the '80s where he just disappeared, and then he shows up in Look Who's Talking. Yeah. As a goofy baby voice. And I'm sorry, not the baby voice. That was Bruce Willis. But it's just another goofy character.
And even like in Pulp Fiction, he's playing really kind of a caricature of,
Vinnie Barbarino.
gone bad.
Yeah, and then he just ends up doing all these hammy roles like Face Off or
Yeah.
what's the one he did with Hugh Jackman? Swordfish.
Broken Arrow.
Broken Arrow. We got to do Broken Arrow.
Don't worry.
Yeah, he ends up just becoming an absolute ham in these movies, and then just anyway, he's Scientologist. His wife is in this movie for Long Tongue for a minute or so. Kelly Preston makes an appearance as a Klinko. Not to be confused with the book called him, which was Chinko.
Yeah.
But yeah, and probably a good move. And then let's see, Forrest Whitaker, who he's what can you say about him? He was great in Birdie, he was good in The Crying Game, Good Morning Vietnam. He's always that good character actor. I can't complain about him.
The Hustler and Color of Money. I love that little scene.
Oh yeah. And Barry Pepper, who's our Gary Stew in this movie, kind of the hero role.
Yeah,
Johnny Good Boy Tyler.
Good Boy. Yeah.
I don't know how they call him Johnny once or twice in the movie, but you never hear his name.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the gravitas for this role. He's always a side character in his movies. He's a good side character.
Yeah.
Great in Saving Private Ryan. I really liked him in this HBO movie called 61, where he played as Roger Maris. Which, fantastic role. Yeah. But other than that, it's
less successful as Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah, I think this movie kind of killed his career in a way. As far as being a lead, he shows up occasionally like as a sidekick or
great supporting role in The Green Mile too.
Yeah, he's a prison guard in that. Yeah. But other than that, that's pretty much a cast. I'm not going to ruin other people's names in there. Although I did want to bring up a couple of things I noticed in the cast, Justin. I hope you saw this.
Okay.
John Travolta had his very own craft service, which I thought was very unusual.
I made a note of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
There was a guy named you help me out here. I don't know if this is usual in a movie, but there was a guy whose name was John Toper, and his name comes up in the credits as playing 3 different characters, but in 3 different parts of the credits. I've never seen that before. I thought that was kind of weird. And he's like Psychlo number 2 or staff person. They're not big roles, but why were they listed separately?
Yeah, you use the other way around. They do the slash names for the actor they played, all the roles they played, and then think of it more like a Greek chorus.
Okay, we'll do that way. And I do. For all you Space Mutiny fans from Mystery Science Theater, there was a name on the stunt crew in this film. I've never seen this guy's name before, but his name was Flint Eagle. And I just thought that was the best stuntman name I've ever heard in my life. I just saw that. It's like, wow. And then this is kind of segueing into your part here, but the visual effects crew in the credits. Oh my gosh. It looked like the same visual, like you were watching a George Lucas film or Godzilla or something. Yeah. There was a huge number of French Canadian bacon up on the screen. And I thought they would have done a better job than what we saw, but we'll talk about that.
Well, a lot of fried pork for sure. Well, thank you, Mike. Typically, when I make notes about the cast, talk about alternate casting and stuff like that. But given the historical nature of this film, either people didn't want to admit that they were in the role, but I couldn't find any like alternate casting or who auditioned for it, anything like that whatsoever. The first attempt to make this film was back in 1980 when Travolta was interested in the project, and he was going to play Johnny. They had a sequel planned for 1983, but they could never get the financing they need. So, but this has been on the back burner for quite a while, 20 years. Travolta offered the directorship to Quentin Tarantino after their collaboration with Pulp Fiction a few years earlier. For some reason, Tarantino declined. But it's weird in hindsight. It's a kind of a pulpy, kind of campy thing. It might have worked with Tarantino, but I guess we'll never know. No.
Sad enough.
Barry Pepper, you mentioned, he commented that Travolta's paycheck was pretty much the whole budget, and the food on set was terrible. To the point where, as you mentioned, Mike, Travolta had to hire his own chef to provide craft services for the crew because most people couldn't stand the food. Speaking of actors that don't have a good affiliation with this movie, Forrest Whitaker has famously said he regrets being in this movie. You can probably see why. We talked about the studio, Franchise Pictures. Part of the reason they didn't have any executives, there were no movie executives there. They were just kind of financial guys, and they were an investment firm. And it's long been thought it was, again, another Scientologist cabal that kind of called all the shots as this kind of started. I guess I should watch my language. Those guys are a little litigious, but the unique cinematic aspect here is Roger Christian's overuse of the Dutch angle.
Oh, yes.
He wanted to make it look like a comic book, but if you notice, most of the scenes here are shot on a nearly 45-degree angle.
It's off-putting after like
the visual
5
impact
minutes.
is very off-putting. Yeah,
and he does the same. He does the scene transitions like you would see in Star Wars, like Lucas did with the
the star wipe,
star wipe. Yeah, but he only does it one way. He only does it from left to right. It's dude, there's other ways you could do this.
Yeah,
but he just consistently does the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, not good. And the phrase "man animal" is used 28 times.
Man animal. Shot by man animal.
In the hour and 50 minutes worth of dialogue here.
and that's true to the book, I would say.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah,
this is one of the few books I've read, and we'll talk about that, of course. But there are some things that, like even the line about crap lousy ceiling. The John Travolta character says that a couple of times in the book, and there are times I'm like, okay, they followed the book a little bit,
Yeah,
a little bit. Maybe
the problem is there's 1,000 pages to that book.
Yeah, it is.
All right, so that's kind of the history of how it got here. Let's talk about some of the stuff around its release. So it got released on May 12th, 2000. Around that time, it was competing with previous films in theater. A couple weeks earlier, you had American Psycho, which is another adaptation of a novel. We'll get to that a little bit more as we progress. The Bret Easton Ellis story, famously played by Christian Bale. And the wrestling entertainment epic Ready to Rumble was in theaters, Mike.
Yes.
Showcasing the talents of David Arquette and
Scott Conn.
Scott Conn,
yes.
And the entire NWA wrestling team. The weekend this came out, its competition was Hamlet with Mel Gibson. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago on our last show. A relatively good portrayal of Hamlet by Mel. The next weekend, it had some competition from Disney's Dinosaur. Kind of took care of the box office after that. And then you had Mission Impossible 2 coming out the following weekend after that. So that kind of took over for the box office the rest of that summer. But what I thought was interesting, when I look back at the movies in that summer of 2000, you know how we're 90s kids and we have such an appreciation for the movies released in that decade. You can start to see here as early as 2000. As soon as the odometer turns over, you get a significant less quality and quantity of summer movies.
Interesting.
Like the summer movies that we talked about with those 90s are, we can go 50 deep, right?
Yeah.
But it might surprise you to know that the biggest summer movies of this year were Big Mama's House, Perfect Storm, Space Cowboys, and What Lies Beneath. So you can see that there's a precipitous drop in the quality and quantity of summer blockbusters in this year. So, it's something I thought was interesting.
Space Cowboys. What was Space Cowboys? I don't even remember that.
I think it was the old guys that Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh, Tommy Lee Jones, yeah. And they have Clint Eastwood too, or James Garner, like it's astronauts.
Yeah, all the old guys.
Okay. I was thinking of Cowboys versus Aliens, which was totally different, but
not a bad movie by any means, but not the summer blockbuster that a 14-year-old kid, wants to go to his stepdad to take him to on the weekend. On television, we were watching ER, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and Survivor was the first season of Survivor. I think that Richard Hatch was fat and naked and allowed future reality shows to really display no shame for ratings. So that set a precedent there. On the music scene, Mike, we always like to talk about pop music. We had young Britney did it again. Oops, she did it again. We had super talent Cisco with the Thong Song.
Oh, yeah.
We had air quotes rock band Creed with Higher. Yeah. So these are the rock bands. Rock in that era where it's some band featuring somebody else. We talked about that before. But this was the summer of bands like Nickelback and Blink-182, Incubus, Three Doors Down, Papa Roach, which I think are all the same band. Just real trash. Famously, Santana won 9 Grammys this year. That was the litmus test for what music was. So not good. Grunge had finally turned the corner, and these are kind of the copies of the copies of the copies of the grunge bands. But that's just us being grumpy, I suppose.
We're really making 2000s sound like the peak of and everything's downhill from there. That's crazy.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a cultural renaissance by any means, but
Mm.
so let's talk about some other things that were happening in 2000. Blockbuster declined to buy fledgling web company Netflix. They had a $50 million offer to buy the company. They turned it down.
Jeez.
And then famously, Netflix
Rest
is worth
history.
Yeah. Netflix is currently worth $188 billion now. And they increased their monthly rental subscription by, every 7 or 8 days. So they got a nice little business model there. Remember film critic David Manning?
No.
Of course you don't, because he didn't exist. But Sony made him up.
Oh no! He added all these stupid movies.
They got caught, and they had to pay a class action lawsuit of $1.5 million. My favorite thing about this, Mike, was that they did some investigative journalism. They found out that nobody knew who this guy was at the paper they claimed he worked at. It wasn't too hard. Didn't really cover their tracks. And as a result of that, Sony had to pay $5 to any patron that went to go see the following movies as a result of these misleading reviews. Hollow Man.
Oh no!
The Patriot, A Knight's Tale, and Vertical Limit. So,
oh wow!
I would give that $5.
Yeah,
I would pay $5 to not see those movies.
3 of those movies, please. Can I have my money back, please?
Again, more dirty pool. This is the year that Matt and Trey, the writers and performers of South Park, showed up at the Oscars. They had a song nominated for Best Song at the Oscars that year. They showed up on acid, wearing. I think Matt was wearing J-Lo's Versace dress.
Oh no!
And I think Trey was actually wearing Gwyneth Paltrow's dress, which is one of the most rebellious things in Oscar history, and I love it. The fact those guys did that just to throw it in their faces because they hate the Oscars, but they had to go. Gas was $1.26 a gallon, and you can get 12 eggs for 89 cents back then. Mike, remember that?
Jeez.
Well, I think the biggest
cry.
Yeah, well,
I thought the thong song would make me cry, but just hearing those egg prices, I'm a little sad.
The takeaway and what makes me cry is that this was the year, famously, that Maude Flanders from The Simpsons was killed off.
Oh no!
You remember she was knocked off the level of bleachers by a t-shirt cannon as she went to go get hot dogs. And I think Ned Flanders' famous last words to her were "no footlongs."
Oh no!
And 40% of the U.S. homes had the internet at this point, Mike, so they could get on the internet and talk about how great this movie was.
That's right. Hey, have y'all seen this?
All right. Well, speaking of this movie, I think there's probably best served just to kind of get through it here as quickly as possible. So, Mike, if you're ready,
Man as an Endangered Species.
The saga of the year 3000. So, Mike, hit the button. This movie kind of starts in the Forbidden Zone, kind of like Planet of the Apes. You see this clan of people. What I thought was funny here was named Chrissy, like the girl character. So you got Johnny and Chrissy and Jughead and all the others on their loincloths. It turns out that Johnny's dad has passed away, and he for some reason he decides to leave the clan and venture off. I guess the village elder's discretion. I didn't really capture any motivation there, but he just leaves. Yeah,
it was funny. I was watching it with my son, and he said, "What was that?" I was like, "Well, that's called condensing 20 or 25 pages of a book into a 1 minute little talk between the elder and Johnny." I was like, really? So, there was so much more nuance and depth to why he left, but why bother?
There's a little exposition they kind of squeeze out of the scene, showing that there's demons in this that came from the sky 1,000 years ago and took over humanity, and they live up in the mountains because that's where it's safe. So as Johnny kind of heads off, he gets met by these two guys, Rock and Carlo. He meets those at the mall. Those guys at the mall, and their other guys.
They didn't love. Supposedly, it's 1,000 years later, but the Christmas tree is still standing in this mall.
Well, Mike,
I was amazed.
I have a special feature of my own at the end of this movie that I kind of want to talk about, and there's some things that I want to. Okay. Feel free to point them out, but I made a list of let's say continuity errors that we can talk about at the end that were just I thought were charming and cute. All right, so he meets up with these two other cavemen at an old mall, and they're trading food, and they get caught, and that's where they get sent into Denver. I think there's a human processing center that the Psychlos, which is the alien race that came to attack us. And that's we get introduced by the giant 4-head, almost 5-head John Travolta. wearing some platform boots, and
it's, I think that was. I remember the first time watching this. That was my first like red flag, other than some of the exposition. But it was the portrayal of these aliens, because in the book they're described as big tigers.
Yeah,
and I know that you can't. It's hard to translate that to the motion picture, obviously. But whoever, I guess it was. Hey, the director, he was a former set director and costume guy.
Yeah.
Maybe it was his idea to give him dreads and platform soles and whatnot.
Yeah. I read the book back in, I don't want to say like 1990. And I was having trouble remembering what the Psychlos looked like, but I know they were like 9-10 feet tall. And,
right.
I think if they would have if they had the tech that, maybe Lord of the Rings had a few years later, where they kind of did that forced perspective stuff and, visual effects for size and scale. I don't know.
That was a thing. Like when they go to the mall and they show the matte painting and it did not hold up well, even on my small screen. As far as the detail and the CGI was just god awful. It was, compared to 2000, that would have been about the time of was that Two Towers, or would that have been the Fellowship of the Ring? Did that come out in 2001?
Yeah, 2000, but they shot all those things in like late 90s. So,
that's right. Those are. I hate to keep bringing that particular picture up because there were other movies.
The tech was there. Yeah, the tech was there, and they could have used some of that concept art, but they went another route. All right, so Travolta plays this guy Terl, Terl, for those that are taking notes. He's head of security on Earth, and he's like the main Psychlo. And as he's there, one of the guys from his home planet kind of drops by and gives him the bad news that he's been stationed there and he wants to get out. And then they do like a Charles Emerson Winchester on him. They find out he has to stay there. I think it's something. He had some sort of nefarious tryst with one of the politician's daughters. Just very tropey crap,
Yeah, and then he says, well, he has to stay 50 cycles instead of 5 cycles. And my first thought is, well, how long is a cycle? Is it a month, week, year, decade?
What if it was like 20 minutes? Wouldn't that be funny?
It would be.
All right, so he's aggravated and obviously resentful, and he's got this like lackey played by Forrest Whitaker that's called Kerr, and they make this kind of deal to they try to figure out a way that they're there to mine gold.
I love gold.
They use the Earth as a giant gold mine, and they decided they want to use the humans that they use for like the petty slavery stuff. They want to use those to train them to do mining and like steal all the profits, right, Mike? So
right. Yeah. What do you think the current crop of human slaves, the man animals they have now, what do you think they were even doing? They never describe what these people are doing. They show them just dragging along in chains and walking around.
Yeah.
I had no, if they weren't mining gold that they were sitting on top of, maybe do you have any idea possibly what they were?
Well, the thing is they've had these humans enslaved for 1,000 years.
Okay.
But they haven't figured out anything about them. which leads into our next scene as well. So they decide that Travolta thinks that this Johnny has some sort of fight in him. So he's like a leader. So he lets him escape, air quote escape, to see what they eat. And there's like 20 minutes in the middle of the movie where they want to figure out how they can leverage, Mike. Another
leverage. There you go. Yeah,
leverage was used 13 times in this 110 minutes.
Never underestimate what a little leverage can do. Rat brain.
But they waste 20 minutes in the middle of the movie trying to understand what humans eat, and they come across some rats and they think that's what they want. So the big joke here is that they eat rats.
Yeah. And you notice that when he's watching them using this, like the stationary security camera, that even the stationary security camera filmed at a Dutch angle.
Yeah,
I thought that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
And it was cut and framed and edited for their convenience as well. There's always pictograms everywhere. So anyway, so they decide to hook up Johnny to the knowledge machine, which is they kind of do a force feed of information into his brain, like a download thing, like a Matrix type thing. And that kind of backfires because all that does is teach Johnny all critical, sensitive, proprietary information about Psychlos. He can overhear their conversations now.
He wakes up like he's a scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz, too. He's like trying to tell him, hey, we can learn about Euclidean geometry. And
Yeah.
this equilateral triangle, all the angles equal each other. It's like, what's wrong with you? How about 1
Yeah.
+ 1 = 2?
Yeah. So yes, I thought that I actually wrote this down. So as he learns, he's also communicating. He's also teaching, train the trainer. He's also teaching all the other people. So he teaches them all the things he learned from the Psychlos, including, as you mentioned, Euclidean geometry, Psychlo history, engineering, and apparently pothole avoidance. uh, so
he could learn
yeah,
knitting like Stallone did in
like Stallone
Demolition
did in
Man.
Demolition Man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
So in an effort to show again leverage, Turl takes him to the Denver Library and shows him how man's history and how resistance would be futile, right? And so they take him out. They take him out to do the mining, and then some stuff happens, of course, and then Johnny kind of becomes Spartacus to all the human slaves.
Oh yeah.
There's a brief scene in here where Kelly Preston, rest in peace, Kelly Preston plays one of his concubines.
Yeah.
She's a small cameo where she reveals that the planet ship, the owner of the planet, he's no good. He kind of shows that he's got 2 sets of books. All these are very like basic, film noir switcheroo concepts, had no real application to science fiction. But
Yeah.
so he decides Charles can blackmail him. That's a subplot that just goes nowhere. So Johnny gets dropped off for a fortnight in the mountains because the Psychlos can't go there, Mike, because all the uranium. So,
yeah, that's something I need to.
So how did they mine the other gold? But okay, it doesn't matter.
I think the idea is that this particular gold is surrounded by uranium, a vein of uranium. I don't know, but
so that's why they wanted the humans to mine it. Okay.
I love the scene where they're flying in the helicopters to the site, and like these little sparks start popping in the cockpit of the helicopter, and
total animated cartoons, by the way.
Yes, and John Travolta's Turl is like, oh, we got to turn back, because
this is far enough.
What they really they basically explain with a hand wave in this movie, but it's very deep in the book. Is the Psychlos breathe gas? They don't breathe oxygen. They breathe in this thing. It's called breathe gas, which just kind of like man animal is another basic L. Ron Hubbard term in the book. It's kind of silly, but anyway, their gas. Obviously they're filled up with their gas, just like we have oxygen in us. But apparently, whenever they get close to something that's radiated or something that's radioactive, the gas will interfere with that, and they'll instantly explode. So it presents some questions for how they dominated the human species in 9 minutes.
Well, we'll get to that here at the end because we're getting to our thrilling conclusion. So rather than just dig the gold, Johnny flies to Kentucky to Fort Knox and gets all the bars of gold because it's Turl.
How long? Okay, I'm sorry to keep interrupting.
No, please, I can't go.
There's
on.
So many WTF moments in this movie. Turl shows Johnny how the U.S. was conquered by taking him to the Denver Library, and it's a good scene, but they show him reading like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And after he returned, John Travolta's like, yeah, did you read enough? He's like, yes. And you find out later that he found out all this other stuff, like where the gold was, where munitions plant was at Fort Hood in Texas.
Yeah.
How long was he in this library reading? How long? Why would Turl let him stay that long? It's incredible.
Questionable motivation here. But that kind of leads to the third act where, as we mentioned, Johnny devised the scheme to rebel with the humans, and it essentially involves going to Fort Hood, as Mike mentioned, and they get into a flight simulator, and they'll learn how to fly a Harrier jet in 7 days. So
brilliant.
All his caveman brothers learn how to fly Harrier jets. They decide that through the transporter, they're going to send a nuclear bomb back to the home planet and explode it, like Mike had mentioned, with that toxic atmosphere. That kind of explosion would blow up the whole planet. But first, they've got to blow the dome, Mike. So the last 20 minutes are just this, snore-inducing, very slow motion heavy final action scene of.
It's the typical cheap movie trope too of the quick cutting. Just do little 1 second here, 2 seconds there. It's like it's disorienting.
Yeah,
it's like a badly choreographed fight in a movie.
Right.
It's just you can tell that they're trying to patch holes. And Justin, I got a question for you. This bothered me while I was watching this movie, and I've seen it in other movies where to kind of mitigate the effects of like a special effects or some CGI, they'll purposely make it kind of dark. You know, you see that.
Yeah,
you see that done with MCU and obviously the
hide all the flaws.
DC movies.
Yeah,
that has flaws. This movie did an interesting take on it. You notice how many scenes were in slow mo?
Oh yeah,
I don't.
That's
and a lot of it. Yeah, it was like the special effects were done slow mo, and I don't know if that
things
was
things in real time register the eye more effectively, and so that's not happening. That wouldn't break that way. But in slow motion, everything looks fake anyway. So.
Oh, and we were talking about during this 20 minutes of snooze, they recreated it. Oh, it made my blood boil. They recreated the Matrix scene where they're Neo and Trinity are getting shot in the lobby of the bank. Do you remember that at the bottom of the building? And there's all done in slow mo, and the bullets are coming by him and blowing up the columns on either side. And things are bursting around.
Lots of squibs. Yeah,
they did this almost shot for shot in this damn movie. I could not believe it because the Matrix was out like 2 or 3 years before this, and to see that scene of Johnny running in slow mo, getting shot at by about a dozen Psychlos.
Yeah,
who. Yeah, God bless them, but none of them could even come close to hitting them. I don't know.
So, at the end of the day, the cavemen and the Harrier jets kind of blow up all the ships. They break the dome, a la the Mars installation. Total Recall.
Where's Ronnie Cox?
All made out of glass. So good job there, Psychlo engineers. There's a lot of styrofoam rocks blowing up. Johnny runs in slow motion all the time. There's a lot of Psychlo guns going boom, 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 killing all the Psychlos, and they ended up capturing Turl and getting him in a cage in the middle of Fort Knox, in the middle of all his gold. You know why they kept him alive, Mike? For leverage. Yeah. My favorite part here at the end is they cut a deal behind Turl's back with Kerr to be the head Psycho on the planet. Completely forgetting the fact that,
yes.
Kerr blew Hero Mickey's brother's head off not Mickey. 10 minutes earlier. But yeah, so Mickey went to Psychlo as a kind of a self-sacrifice with the nuclear bomb, and then he blows up the home planet, and that's it. All the Psychlos are dead except for Tur and Curl. And we were left wanting a sequel, wanted more, right? But,
right.
But the scene kind of ends with a panning shot, rotating pan shot of Travolta stuck in a cage and around all the bars of gold, and then as you mentioned, Mike, there's 9 minutes of credits showcasing all the good folks who made this movie possible, and that's all
those fine folks.
But we were spared the late '90s heavy metal power ballad song at the end of this one, at least.
That's true. You know that I remember hearing this a while back, but Hubbard actually composed a jazz album to go with this movie.
Yeah, he was
to go with the book, because he never made it to the movie, but with the book he wanted to have a jazz kind of soundtrack, which I thought they would kind of maybe, he is their supreme leader. I thought they would have probably have included that in the movie, but no, sadly, because jazz would have been perfect. Smooth jazz would have been great with this movie.
Just like the elevator that you hear it in. All right, so let's take a deep breath, Mike. We got through it, so let's talk about, I guess we'll call them awards and accolades. So it had an $11 million opening weekend, not big there. Ended up coming in with about $21 million, kind of cementing its place as one of the bigger flops of all time. Managed about $29 million worldwide. It suggested a sequel, but that sequel was scrapped for critical reception and box office returns. So
this was barely, probably not even halfway through the book. Where this movie
I think that's where it stopped, about halfway through. So there you go. So no awards short of the Stinker Awards. It won 9 out of the 10 that it was nominated for.
They get the Razzies?
Of course, the Razzies won big time at the Razzies, Mike. It got 7 wins out of 8 nominations total.
Wow.
What I like here, and what I guess is a bit of retribution, and I'll kind of talk to you here as my take, but a lot of the people that were in this movie have kind of owned it. And the screenwriter said, at the Razzie Awards, he goes, you know what? of all the sucky movies that have ever existed, mine was the suckiest. And he's kind of proud of it, you know.
Yeah.
Barry Pepper said if he knew who he was going to win, he would have actually shown up in person to accept his award. So
Right.
one of my favorite Razzies that year was Travolta won for worst on-screen couple. But he won for John Travolta, and it was open-ended. John Travolta and it was anyone sharing screen time with him also won the award. Because I guess not only for this movie, but I think the movie Lucky Numbers with him and where he plays the weatherman with Lisa Kudrow that wins the lottery.
Oh my gosh.
Not well received that year either. But so yeah, it's not a revelation to anybody listening who knows anything about film history. This one's not up there. But let's kind of go through our Grand Prix movie anyway and do our diligence. So Mike, why don't you go ahead and go first and talk about the first time you saw it and the impact it had on you and how you felt about on your most recent watch. So
this is one of the first times I felt like I really had the rug pulled out from under me after reading the novel, which like it was a fantastic novel. For what you can say about L. Ron Hubbard, it was pulp sci-fi, kind of basic, like you say. The word leverage is the book, just like the movie, leverages in there constantly. Man, animal, breathe gas, these stupid terms.
Rat
Even
brain.
the term rat brain, that's another one. Even the term Psychlo, which are the aliens, are referred to his disdain for psychology and psychiatrists, which I thought at the time was really cool.
There's subtext in there for sure.
It is. And the thought that these Psychlos were coming down to Earth and taking over was really a cool thing. Now, I think reading that was really good. It gets the second half of the book is more political intrigue and almost more sci-fi than the first half.
Yep.
As far as it's kind of like we talked about Demolition Man or even the Road Warrior, where everything kind of is in this small little place, like, and we're watching Battlefield Earth and everything's happening around Denver or Aspen, Colorado. It's like, okay, wow. Meanwhile, what you don't know from watching this damn movie is that the Psychlos own most of the universe. These guys have established colonies everywhere and have dominated most every species there can be, and own multiple thousands of planets and everything. So, but you don't get that from the scope of the movie. But that's what the second half of the book kind of delves into. And Johnny Goodboy Tyler, ends up being the hero of the world, and it's interesting. It would have made an interesting second half movie. It would have been even more incomprehensible for them to film with their shoestring budget.
Yeah,
but it would have been neat. But after watching this movie in the theater in 2000, I was enraged. I was just I tried purposely not to look at any reviews for it. I put my Entertainment Weekly magazine, the weekly when it came out, just put it to the side at least for a month. I was like, I don't want to know anything about it. I watched that. I was one of those. What did it make? 11 million in the first weekend. I was one. I pitched into that, and I was so upset. You think having a dedicated Scientology guy behind the filming of it, you would have had a little bit more love for the craft and whatnot. But I guess, as you say, when you have a budget that's kind of questionable and people, too many, I hate to use this phrase, but it's an old one, too many Indians, not enough chiefs, kind of behind it, you're going to get crap. It doesn't matter who's in it and what their devotion to the product is. It was poorly done. And for, like I said, it's one of those I would like to see somebody else take a stab at it, but kind of like Dune in a way. How Dune?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like David Lynch's version, but like this newer one.
Yeah,
it would be similar for me like that because we listen to our Dune podcast. You'll hear how we kind of derided some of their special effects, but at least in Dune, you feel like they were able to film that giant book in a 2-hour movie. He had to, Lynch had to rush through some of it, but he at least.
Yeah, I mean, he college try.
You got it to the end zone. Say what you will about Dune, at least got the book pretty well. A lot better than Battlefield Earth. It was trashed and in the hands of, like you say, somebody who kind of an amateur. Is surprising that they trusted this director and these screenplay. I'm doing that in quotes. Screenwriters. And it turned out to be a mess. There's so much more I could say. I don't even. Why does Barry Pepper occasionally have an English accent? Why? How?
Convey how smart he is.
I think this was described in the book, but I'm too far removed from it. But when they first come down, the Psychlos battle the humans, conquer them in 9 minutes. I don't know how we didn't use nuclear weapons against them, and that would have killed them instantly.
Well,
like you imagine the dust cloud of radiation that would have been worldwide. Yeah. And there would have been no way for these guys to even show up on our planet.
A lot of these Psychlos got taken out with like clubs, but save some of those for a minute, Mike. I got a new segment I want to talk about. I think you'll be perfect for it. So
all right.
So my take on it, I saw it. I was with you. I saw it, opening week, maybe not the same opening day, but I took my dad. My dad was a huge post-apocalyptic fan. He read several of these pulp novels. He read this, the year it came out, and so I wanted to take him to do something special. And I remember I tried to get his take on it. I couldn't tell if he was disappointed or not. He was usually a sucker for these kind of movies, but I remember watching it in a relatively empty theater. And I remember the scene where, where Psychlo blows up. I remember just being oddly like quiet. And there's like maybe 4 people in the theater other than my family. And they just kind of walked out unimpressed. And I just didn't really, I didn't have, a dog in the fight. I was just kind of hosting this one, and I just kind of walked out saying, okay, but did not hit the mark, whatever. And then I've had 20 years to like have it marinate and hear all the armchair quarterbacks and hear this. It's got 2 decades worth of stigma attached to it. So when you mentioned the potentially being remade, I thought, does this movie have so much stigma that a remake would even work? Could you even overcome that at this point? That would be interesting to take on.
You're right. Yeah. After Leah Remini shows and all these bad things about Scientology, it probably
could not get made.
No,
I would think, but
no.
But I'm gonna flip the script a little bit. I enjoyed it a little more, and it got to the point where my first review was probably 2 out of 5. I'm gonna go up to like 2.5, maybe 3. And
wow.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
It's not because it's good, but I ended up, and usually I did not fast forward one frame of this movie, and sometimes I do that because I've obviously seen them before, and I just want to get through them, missing any critical plot points, or whatever. But I savored this for some reason, and I think it was because it was like I remember like saying in my head, "Oh, give me more of this. This is wonderful." When we review other movies, where millennials or Gen Zers will review movies from our generation, I'll say, "Well, this is a cult classic now." Yeah. Like, no, this has the bones to be a cult classic because it had to know what it was. It wasn't making a statement. It was just making this pulpy science fiction movie. And I think the stigma of Scientology got thrown in there. There's not a lot of Scientology overtones in this thing. If you didn't know about Scientology, you would never see anything like this.
Like I said, the whole reference to psychiatrists and the Scientologist disdain for him. No one would know that's what he's trying to say in the book.
I enjoyed this the same way I enjoyed Rocky Horror Picture Show. Mm. These things are not great works of art. They're, initiates some sort of emotional response to you. These are just what they are. They're on the surface. They're just dumb, fun type movies.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would get to the point where I'd had this as an opinion of it, but I got to the point where I couldn't get enough of it.
Well, yeah, it's funny because when I was doing my review a minute ago, I never got to what I thought of it now, because watching it last night, I was like I said, I was watching it with my son. The first time I watched it with my friend Danny Smith, and he was a big L. Ron Hubbard fan, and he was as disappointed as I was. So we were probably both left the theater thinking, okay, that's 0.5 star, 0 star. That was terrible. But watching it last night, there was a bit of charm to it. I would say
you saw it too, right? Yeah.
I would go up a little, just based on the fact that back then I didn't know how big a stinker it was, and then I'm watching it now, and it's kind of like I'm going to refer to another podcast we did on Congo. Michael Crichton book, which some people like, some people didn't, but anyway, that book was ripped to shreds in that movie as far as the continuity and the special effects and the men in the ape costumes. It was horrible, but I think rewatching it like we did a few months ago, it had some kind of goofy charm, And this, you can see it in this one. Travolta was chewing the scenery. You have to enjoy that. I mean, it's like I said, even with Face Off, we didn't really like it, but the scenery chewing is almost magical in a way. You don't see that anymore, and that's something that you have to kind of like. That was pretty funny the way they did that,
I didn't have the burden of determining whether or not this was going to be good. It was already predetermined for me.
Right.
And you take that psychological barrier out of the way, and you're like, okay, let's watch this crap. And I was just, it was a knee slapper.
Yeah, the terrible green screening, the Dutch angles, the quick cutting, the slow mo.
I wouldn't want any other way. So let's talk about. So you talked about some of the foibles here, the shortfalls. So I want to start a new segment here for something I'm going to call continuity schmontinuity. Mike.
Nice.
And I want to talk about some of the things that I saw in this movie that, and we're running along here, but I don't care because it's worth it. But there's some things here that just I thought were interesting, and feel free to pitch in with anything new that you see here. So I appreciated, Johnny's hair. It was never the same in any scene. Varying lengths and styles, which I thought was funny. In the first scene, you see a bright, shiny red car. It's like a 1997 model something. And I want whatever that turtle wax is, that mega turtle wax.
Oh, I know, right?
1,000 years, and you still have that new car shine.
It looked beautiful.
They had 6 fingers in some scenes and 5 fingers in others. Did you notice that? They kept. I knew from the book that the Psychlos had 6 fingers, and there's a few scenes where they put emphasis on their hands, and they have like Dr. K mentioned last week with polydactylism.
Yes.
See how it's all working together, Mike?
I know. Look at that.
It's all meta. They couldn't decide whether they want to do 5 or 6. I thought that was funny. Besides the premise of caveman flying Harrier jets, jet fuel has a half-life of about 4 years, but these things started right.
They were good to go, weren't they?
They don't last 1,000 years, but
power in general. Did you wonder how the simulator still worked in Fort Hood?
And the radio batteries that they used on the battlefield.
Yeah, it's like okay.
My Xbox controller doesn't last 4 days. Figured out something. You mentioned the scene about the atmosphere, the breathe gas, deficient of oxygen you get when Johnny's running through the resource center. Multiple fires are burning.
No oxygen. Yeah, I wrote that down. Like, how does fire burn without oxygen? Yeah, that's a good one.
I thought it was interesting that not only English survives, but anachronisms too. Piece of cake.
Oh yeah.
They don't remember who the previous generation was, but they know piece of cake that survived. We talked about the Psychlos enslaving humans for 1,000 years, but they still don't know what they eat, much less anything else about them.
Yeah, they feed them what that like a mush that comes through a hose.
Paste. Yeah.
And
I don't know if this is just continuity or just irony, maybe, but Turl mentions that of all the tech that human beings had, they only put up a measly 9-minute defense. They lost everything in 9 minutes. Yet it was the same equipment that was used by characters whose best dialogue was They used the same equipment, same weapons. They managed to take everybody out. So I didn't quite see that. But
didn't you like the way that Turl let them work in his own personal office unaccompanied and unassisted?
Yeah,
they just
very lax.
They let these man animals just do what they want in there and just look through all his records and just said, hey, this will leave him in there.
Man animals reading records. Ha ha ha
ha.
Stupid.
That laugh. And they had a lot. I think one of the biggest problems that, unless you, like I said, read the book. Just like what they used to say, you remember the Dynex commercials where they used to say, read the book?
Read the book.
Yeah.
Page 28.
They had such trouble with distinguishing where the atmosphere was for the Psychlos, where the humans were, that I think the filmmakers got confused. And you would see like the humans wearing their little brief right strip mask. And then the Psychlos weren't. And then it would change over, but they were in the same place, and the humans weren't wearing their masks, and the Psychlos were.
That was botched on every level. Yeah. Even at the end, when they blow up the glass building, you don't see any Psychlos suffocating. They just why not just show one scene just to show that this is what they're trying to? I don't know. But anyway, those were some of the continuity errors that I thought were particularly charming, Mike. So we talked about, disappointment because me and Mike had both read this book, and we thought it would be interesting for this week's episode of You Just Made the List, Pal. To talk about other notable, often lousy adaptations from our favorite books. So this movie kind of missed the mark, but there are several instances of other movies that maybe hit closer, maybe miss farther. So Mike, let's go through a couple. Talk about some of the movie adaptations that you felt either of note that just didn't play well, or
Yes.
right on point? So go
Well,
ahead.
my ground rule for this is books that I've read, which sadly is a small little group of books because I don't have time to read.
Yeah.
But I would go first with Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Oh yeah, good
Book
one.
came out about 10 years ago. And say what you want, it was dumb. And it's kind of like watching this movie. You knew going into the book it was going to be kind of silly, but it at least had some depth to it that was expressed kind of first person omniscient, where you're inside the character's head, you know what he's thinking and doing. Again, that does not translate very well in a movie if you don't know what the characters are actually thinking or plotting, or there's no nuance. It's just killed, vampire, kill, next action scene, which were done poorly in this movie, by the way. But
Yeah.
a lot of the depth of the movie is just taken away just to make it kind of a pulpy action movie. And I was very, like I said, the book is not a think piece, but still, the movie did not do any credit to the book. So there you go.
Well, that's a good one. So the precursor for me, obviously, I wanted to read them so I can make comparative analysis, but I also, they're not necessarily bad movies. It's just adaptations that are poor. So for me, kind of the same line, Jurassic Park, the original Jurassic Park, great movie, loved it, adventuresome, groundbreaking CGI, Spielberg up the wazoo. I loved it, but the book I felt was much more compelling as a narrative, because in the book John Hammond isn't this happy go lucky Colonel Sanders type. He is a corporate prick, and he's horrible, and he's mean, and he's only out for profits, and he meets his demise by getting eaten alive by the little dinosaurs. But the theme is about overbearing theme about man's intrusion into nature and playing God, and the movie really Goldblum tries to pull that out in one scene, but the overlaying theme of that book is very dread, and it's a very cautionary tale. But they kind of missed the whole point. But the movie's great; it just didn't really match up the book. So that's my first one, Jurassic Park.
Yeah, what I remember about that book was just in depth. He goes into like DNA splicing and all the science behind it is kind of shown in the movie with BD Wong looking through a microscope, and a little cartoon movie they show you.
And the moral ambiguity of, is it right to bring these things back? And nature selected them to be off the planet, and it's never really got captured in the film, but still a good watch anyway. So, what's your next one, Mike?
This one's a country cousin of Battlefield Earth, but it's another. It was a really well done series of books by someone who's from the local area. I think he's from North Carolina. I cannot remember his name, but he did this series called Ender's Game. And that was the first book in the series. But Ender is this kid who's able to save the world from, actually save the universe from, kind of similar to Battlefield Earth, although Earth is kind of a headquarters that's untouched. This is all the action occurs deep in space, but because of some kind of psychological psychic ability he has, he's able to learn how to operate ships and spaceships, just multiple. And it's a very interesting book. A lot of the book involves psychological trauma. This is like an 8-year-old kid. He grows up a couple of years during the book, but it's he's along with these other kids that are trained. It has a lot of like deep meaning as far as like wanting to be home again with his parents back in on Earth. But the movie kind of waves it away again, and it becomes more of a Johnny Goodboy Tyler, Gary Stu. This Ender can do no wrong kind of character, and saves the world, and has a very tired Harrison Ford in it, just to throw him out there again. But it was supposed to be a series, and the movie kind of flopped at the theater, unfortunately. And we'll never see the rest of the Ender story, which really gets deeper and deeper into his relation. He actually becomes an ambassador to other alien species that he had killed in the first movie, and it's a really neat story, but alas, the movie sucked so bad that it never happened.
I think Orson Scott Card is the author.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
It would bother you all night. So,
yeah.
All right, Mike, that's a good one. My next one, again, not a terrible film, but just kind of a rough adaptation from some very beloved source material. I'm going to go with The Shining, a movie, again, that we covered on our fourth show. The movie is iconic, and there's, visually, and Kubrick's masterpiece and all the kind of things, kind of a slow burn in some places, but I mean, everybody's seen The Shining and knows about The Shining. What a lot of people don't know is some of the adaptation for the book. They miss a lot of plot critical things. The biggest one here is Jack's descent into madness. In the movie, Jack goes crazy in about 8 frames. But the book is more of a slow progression, kind of really plays on the dynamic and the relationship that Jack and Danny have, coming from, his alcoholic, violent past, and they're mending and becoming, father and son again, and just the way that kind of breaks down over time, and the slow atmospheric haunting of that hotel and its effect on Jack Torrance. Just really, it got rushed, of course, for the film, but it really plays more effective, more methodical, more creepy, more heart-wrenching at the end ultimately. But a movie doesn't have time to pick that up. But my next pick of The Shining from 1980. Nice. So, all right, Mike, why don't you do your last one? Maybe throw in a couple honorable mentions.
Let's do some honorable mentions. One of your favorite actors, Justin, Jack Black, was in this movie called Gulliver's Travels.
Oh.
Came out about, 12, 13 years ago.
I missed that one, Mike.
Stinker. Absolute stinker. I'm glad you did. He's terrible. There's actually, I'm gonna be nice, mention a good movie called The Dead. It's a James Joyce story that I had to read in high school. Yeah. But it actually ended up being a really well done movie by John Huston, of all people. I think it was one of his last movies, but it's a book about kind of Irish well-to-do people, and kind of a ghost story in a way, but it's really well done. So there you go. That's my, I see, I'm mentioning good stuff.
There you go.
Now for my final pick, it's a novel written by David Brin from 1985. It involves a post-apocalyptic dystopian kind of atmosphere. It's called The Postman. No, I'm just kidding.
You're killing me.
No, I can't do it again.
Cutting it all out.
Now I'm going to segue nicely with your Shining. I'm going to go with another Stephen King book, because he just said one of the stupidest things I've heard in the last couple of weeks. He said that The Flash was the best superhero movie he had ever seen.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure he was shilling for something, but whatever. Like you say, though, a lot of Stephen King books are so psychological that they don't translate well to the screen.
Yeah.
You ended up seeing a lot of them made into miniseries on TV, unfortunately, like The Stand or
Tommy Knockers.
Langoliers.
Langoliers.
There's the Salem's Lot, which luckily that was probably one of the better ones. Anyway, mine that I saw that was a motion picture that was released in the theaters was Pet Sematary. One of my favorite Stephen King books. One of the reasons why is because of the ending. The ending is very ambiguous. Spoiler territory here, but he ends up trying to reanimate or resurrect his wife who had just been killed, and it ends with him playing solitaire in his kitchen, and all you hear is the door opening and her, obviously coming up from the ground, and she says, "Darling."
Yeah,
it's one of the best endings ever. Pet Sematary decided to go a different route and make it more, I don't know,
cheap.
Thank you. Yeah, it cuts to her picking up a knife after he hugs her, and she picks up a knife and it fades away, and all you hear is the husband screaming. So you assume
fade to black. Yeah.
Yep. And it just, the movie in general was too violent and too didn't cover enough ground as far as the mysticism of burying people in this Indian burial ground and having them be resurrected. It kind of related. It had to feel more of a TV movie with graphic violence, if that's the best way to describe it. And it was poorly done.
All right, that's a great one. I have a soft spot in my heart for that movie, though. It's one of those things I did enjoy, but you made some points that I believe. I'm with you. So you might have sold me on it.
On its own, it wasn't bad. It was good enough to have a terrible sequel, but the book was so much better. It was kind of like The Shining. You think The Shining is a good movie, but it could have been improved, maybe based on what the author had intended.
Can't go down that road, Mike.
Thank you, Fred.
Sometimes dead is better. Well, I'm going to flip the script a little bit on mine, no pun intended. I'm going to talk about it when it works the other way. I want to talk about Jaws, a movie that we also covered on our podcast. You can go back and check that out. But when you read the original novel by Peter Benchley, you start to realize that the film is a much cleaner, more efficient narrative. There's a lot of extraneous stuff that Benchley added to the book that the movie just ignores and tells a much more effective story. For example, Quint is romanticized and humanized, but in the book, Quint is just a bastard that you don't like. He's very unlikable. He's kind of like a Captain Ahab type for the entire movie. There's also a really bizarre subplot in the book where the mafia is controlling the beaches, and the reason that the beaches are left open because that was a money-making thing for. There's a whole mafia subplot in there. There's an extra thing where Brady's wife has an affair with Matt Hooper. Matt Hooper dies in the book. There's a lot of extra stuff that go in. That's
so dark.
If it were filmed, it would have been a mess. And I think because we talked about, we've romanticized about how much Jaws is almost a perfect movie. To think if anything else, compromising or contaminating that story, they would have kept out of the faithful adaptation of the book. That all would have been in there, and that essentially not really worked. So my last one's Jaws as an example of when things actually work better as an adaptation. I've got a couple other honorable mentions. The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh, yes.
We have to talk about that movie at some point. Just talk about how Gonzo
just the
crazy
filming of it. Yeah,
the filming of it is crazy with Val Kilmer, and who would have thought a movie with Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando would have went wrong?
I know, right?
Although other honorable mentions are also films that we've covered on previous episodes. So check out our back catalog for the following films: Interview with a Vampire, Fight Club, Stand By Me, Blade Runner, Planet of the Apes, Goodfellas, Congo, and Dune. So we've talked about a lot of literary masterpieces, Mike, and I encourage all of our audiences, it's the first time you're listening, go back and check us out. Okay, well, that's going to kind of wrap it up. We've gone really long talking about Battlefield Earth today, Mike. I did not anticipate that.
A lot of meat on that bone.
A lot of meat on that bone, that's for sure.
Rat. Yeah.
So if you want to check out anything about our show, you can check us on our Instagram page at Grumpy Nostalgia. And if you want to send us an email with any information about our observations or your take on things or requests you might want to see, you can send us to us at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com. So Mike, that's going to kind of wrap it up. This was a fun one. Thanks for your time, buddy. And this is
oh yeah.
I know you were always dreading this one. I know you.
If
mustered
anybody,
the courage to do this, so I appreciate it.
That's right. Yeah. If anybody saw our Instagram post about 30 movies in 30 days, this is the one that enraged me more than anything.
But you're here and you're standing, and that's what it's
that's
all about.
right. And I want to end it with a famous quote, but I'm going to twist it a little bit. How about, "Get your paws off me, you damn stinking Psychlo."
What kind of crap lousy game are you playing, Mike? All right. So for Mike James, this is Justin, and we will see you again next time.
Bring me my BC headache powder and a glass of water.